Okay, great. So let's continue. All right, so to begin, what is program evaluation? Well, we're talking about program evaluation. The first question is, what is it? And so I just want to go through a couple points. It is the collection and analysis of a program's data. So it is around data, it's rooted in data, and the purpose of it is not just to collect data for data's sake. It's one, to understand the program better. So each of us has our position within the program that we work, and you have your own set of data, and it doesn't necessarily mean numbers, right? Data can be stories or experiences as well. And so you have your own perspective in what's going on within the program and how things are running, and who's attending, all sorts of questions you can answer from your perspective. And your partner might have a very similar perspective, but they might also have other information from their own unique experiences. They might have been working here longer than you. They might have worked with a different set of clients. And so the beauty of program evaluation and the beauty of collecting data across the board is that we can now see from a bird's eye view what's taking place across the board, and we can start to see trends over time because we have all of that information feeding in. So that's the first one, understand programs better. We also collect data in order to ensure that a program is meeting its goals. Now, those of you who are funded by DYCD, I know you know this well. In terms of DYCD sets these goals for you to accomplish. They look for particular outputs from you. And in the collection of your data and the reporting out of it, you're showing DYCD, yes, we are accomplishing what you have told us that we should be accomplishing. So that's another facet of program evaluation. Another one is to help make strategic decisions. So like I was telling you, I'm curious what your evaluation questions are about your own program. And that's kind of tied into this point. So you might have these particular questions, things that you want to understand about how your program is operating. And in the ascertaining of that information, you're able then to make other decisions. What do I mean by that? A nice example, I'm thinking of a program that I used to work with. They provide food. They're called City Harvest, if you've heard of them. And one of the programs in particular that I was working with, they we're trying to figure out how to collaborate with a local organization in Staten Island, and they wanted to increase the vision, or like the visibility of different cultural foods in the area. They wanted to raise and have more conversations about different cultures that are in that community in Staten Island, and the way they wanted to do it was through different foods. And so what they wound up doing was at a local fair, they wound up calling in different restaurants to come and make certain cultural dishes that they're known for. So part of it was a nice marketing piece for those programs, for those restaurants. And then on top of that, they polled the folks that were coming and tasting the different foods. And they asked, well, first of all, did you enjoy it? And then second of all, what kind of further events might you be interested in? Would you be interested in cooking classes? Would you be interested in knowing about how to store and buy the best produce possible? Would you be interested in learning about different spices that you can use? So through that feedback, they were able to help figure out what future programming they could offer. So this is what I mean by those strategic decisions, and how data can help you, that feedback can help you to make those decisions. So what is really important for me to understand, or for me to share with all of you, is that program evaluation is not a tool to judge the performance of a program's employees. This is not an evaluation of you or your performance. This is an evaluation of how the program itself is operating and how it's meeting the needs of the participants. That is the most important distinction for you to understand. One, just because I don't want you to think that I'm coming in here and in any way, shape, or form judging you or setting up a system that will judge you. We are coming in here. I am joining with you in order to create tools and systems to help with learning, advocacy, and social justice across the program. Thank you. All right. Any questions about that before I move on? Okay. And please, as I'm talking, I am so much more than happy if you unmute yourself and speak up. You don't need to wait at any point in time. Okay, so as I said, one of the key pivotal pieces is data, right? Like data helps us to do all of those amazing things that I just finished saying. And again, I just want to reemphasize data is not necessarily just numbers. It is conversations, it is experiences, and the program evaluation piece is figuring out how do we capture all of those things, because data is limited. And this is where we're getting into, okay, well, what are some of the benefits and what are some of the drawbacks? So I'll talk about the benefits first. And I'll admit that I am biased because I'm a huge data fan, but I will admit that there are some downfalls in the moment. Anyway, so in terms of benefits, it can tell us a story about something that has happened. So like I said, it looks back, it can retroactively help us to reflect on things that have happened. It gives us an opportunity to stand back from our experiences and look at it a little bit more objectively, which is a nice gift that we can give ourselves. It can be used to advocate for more funding. It can be used to advocate for better laws and better public services. So once we have this data, and I've been sharing this with folks about what's taking place with COVID and the response, a lot of nonprofits are doing things and providing services that they never had planned for, but it's just needed in this moment. And the ability to be able to capture that information of what services are now being provided because they're so necessary gives nonprofits and us the opportunity to say, hey, this is what's needed. This is how important this need is in our community. And can you help us to get there? And that's the truth in everyday practice too, to be able to say, hey, here are the needs, here are the services we're providing, and can you please help us to have an even greater impact? It can help us to make more informed decisions. This ties back into the strategic planning piece that I talked about. It can help us to understand the big picture. Again, give us the bird's eye view that we might not necessarily have when we're in one particular position. And then, like I said, there are some drawbacks, I will admit, when it comes to data. A couple of the drawbacks that are worth pointing out. It doesn't always tell the whole story, right? Especially if we're talking about numbers, the pure idea of data, the one that most people have when they think of data. That for sure does not always tell the whole story. And so it's really important as we're working with data that we're not just using numbers, that we do have that understanding, that qualitative data to be able to back up what it is that we're talking about when we give a percentage or some whole number. It is time consuming to enter and to collect. And so I acknowledge and understand that too. And if anybody's feeling some anxiety of, oh, now Liz is coming in and she's going to be creating more systems for us to collect more data and do more data entry, I get that. I know that your time is limited. I know that your teams are small. And so my commitment to you is, as we move forward with this, we find the least burdensome way of doing this that has the greatest impact. That is my goal here. I want a huge impact with as little burden as possible. And so I'm going to depend on you all to help me to get there. Data can be intimidating and or confusing. I think that this ties way back to like elementary school, middle school math classes, right? And people either felt like they could sink or swim. And I think we create these ideas of, well, I can do data or I cannot do data. And they persist through adulthood. And I acknowledge that. I know that we all have our different levels and we all have our different experiences with it. So part of my engagement process is to make it more accessible too. So if, as we go through, you ever have any questions from me about any type of data analysis or working with Excel or whatever it may be, if you're looking for resources, I am here as a resource. I'm doing this program evaluation build with you, but I'm here as somebody that you can call upon. But I do acknowledge that it can be intimidating or confusing. Data can be misused. And I'm sure you can think of times where this is this happens around us today. I know politicians are notorious for doing this with their data, and it can be misused. It is a powerful tool, and it can be used for good or evil, and we'll make sure that we use it in a really informed way. It can be misinterpreted. And so this again is about that, goes back to that first bullet. It doesn't always tell the whole story. When we provide our information, we make sure that we do it in a way that is really clear, really concise, and provides the full context so that people do not misunderstand in any way, shape, or form what it is that we're trying to communicate. It doesn't feel as important as working with clients, and I so get that. The work is the most important part. This is why we do what we do. The data piece is secondary. It is just as important in order to maintain doing what you're doing and to keep that funding coming in. But I get that pull as well. I just want to acknowledge that conflict you can feel sometimes. So as a result of all of that, I have some rules that come around data that I just want to establish, lay out here as our working agreements when it comes to working with data. The first one, data does not drive decisions. So you might hear the phrase data-driven decision-making. It's not, that can be misconstrued. It's not the data that drives decisions. We drive the data. We're the ones who collect it. We interpret it. We report on the results. And we are the ones who use it to inform our decisions. The data does not drive us, we drive the data. It's just like a computer. Computer doesn't drive us most days, we drive our computers. It's a tool. Next, everyone should be able to access, analyze, and use their program's data. This is an idea of creating an open environment where if you are a person who is putting in the data, you should have the ability to access and analyze it and use it as well. It should be able to inform you as much as it informs the other people. Now, this is a lofty goal. It's not always the easiest, but it is something that is a goal to work towards. The next one, we always say in our classes that we don't data alone, that we data in teams. And the reason is because there's so much more wisdom and more insights that we can reach when we're working together. And if we're practically talking about an analysis, it's so much easier if you can turn to somebody and get some help as opposed to working on your own. Next, we use data to ensure ourselves and our clients that we are offering the best services possible. So this is a universal language. You can tell somebody, yeah, oh, we are amazing. We do these incredible things. And you could stop your sentence there. And they'd be like, okay, that sounds great. It's when you give those examples, it could just be a story about a really profound impact that you had on one of your participants. And that's when people start to believe. You're giving that evidence. And that's all we're seeking to do here is create a system where we're giving evidence of the work, the good work that you're doing. And then my last rule of data, because collecting and entering data is sometimes time consuming, we never collect more data than we need. So this is a continual process. We are going to go through and create a system where it is specifically what you believe are the most important data points for us to collect. And then from there, and then from there, we will talk about, we will revisit. It's important to keep revisiting. If it's feeling like the data point isn't important or necessary anymore, then it's something that we need to revisit and either refine or remove. So those are my rules of data. I want to give just a moment to pause and come back to all of you. Any questions for me? Any thoughts, reflections, anything you agree or disagree with? It was a lot.
Hi, Liz.
Hey, Jane.
I really like your rules of data. I think that, you know, your ability and the way you approach it, the ability to see the pros and the cons are really important. That I just like it. I just like that it's a well-rounded way of presenting data. It humanizes us more.
Good. Good. That is the purpose. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for me? Maybe does it all like resonate, make sense? Maybe just give me like a thumbs up, sideways down. Okay, cool. All right, thanks. I just needed that. I like being in the space with all of you because I can read your body language. It's so hard on video. So thank you for that. All right, so what I want to do is turn it over to Allie. Oh no, I'm sorry, Allie. I have one more slide and then I'll turn it over to you. So I just want to go through really quickly. This is another tool that I use when I'm teaching about data and data analysis. This is called the data analysis value chain. It normally has 5 pieces, but I added the 6th in there just to kind of clarify like what we're doing here and how we engage with data. So it always begins with a question. So that's at the top. We identify what the question is. What is it that we want to know in order to just be more informed or to be able to inform others better? So like I shared with you, the first one that we're going to address is how do we know that we are successful? What does success look like for our participants? So that's identifying the question. After that, we figure out how we want to measure that. So what does measurement of that look like? What's the most responsible, effective way of doing that? Once we figure out how to measure it, we do the data collection. After we've collected the data, we then move into the analysis. So that's where we use Excel or R or whatever our analysis tool is to just kind of like draw conclusions from it. After that, we move into this collaborative space of pulling people together to talk about the results. So a lot of times my role is often to do the analysis and then I bring it back to the people who are doing the work, and it's in this that the magic happens. So I say, okay, well, here are your numbers. What does it mean? And that's where you're able to tell me, oh, this means this means this. We need more information about this. That doesn't really make sense. Can you go back and do a reanalysis? Like it's this discussion. This is where we create our stories. This is where we draw our conclusions about how we're doing. And then after that is the action. And so I firmly believe, again, that we don't collect more data than we need. So it should be in the purpose of answering a question, and that question should ultimately feed into this action. And at the end, you should be taking action that's based on the results of your question. And as you can see, it's a circle, right? So as we are running the analysis, we're discussing results, we might find that we need more data, or we might find that we have 10 more questions after we discuss. And so the cycle continues. It is a continual process of information and learning. And when we talk about learning cultures, that's what this is. It's a learning culture. It's a data-driven culture. We're using the data to inform or drive our actions. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Allie. And Allie, I'll just click through for you, unless you want to take control. I guess we could do that too.
Liz, can I just jump in before Allie?
Yeah, of course, please.
Yeah, no, I like what you're doing here because I've always felt that the best tests were never really an accurate depiction of the benefits of the ESL program. I mean, I'm sure you have to have incoming numbers and outcoming numbers, but it doesn't show, you know, a student who, for example, the first month or so of class constantly had their head down, would never participate, wasn't engaging with other students, and now come June is doing cartwheels in the middle of the class. I mean, of course I exaggerate, but I'm saying that, you know, it's very one-dimensional. So I like this idea that we can show in more detail how students are benefited with confidence building and just showing possibilities. You know, when students' confidence is, you know, constantly is built, just the possibilities are endless. So you just feel that you can do so much more. Someone believed in you. You showed yourself that, you know, you can achieve, and now the world's open. So the one-dimensional best test doesn't really show that. So that's what I really like about what you're saying.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate that. I completely and wholeheartedly agree. I find a lot of times that funders ask for really basic output type measures, and it just does not capture the extent of the work that you do. And it doesn't paint the best story either if you're looking for more funding. It's
Absolutely.
exactly like you're saying, it's that really profound impact that you provide that really hits home for people who are looking to fund good work.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Allie, you ready? I'm gonna mute myself.
Yes, let me see if I can. Oh, yeah, so I guess that worked.
Okay.
I click next. Yeah, so I just want to walk through an example of how the data analysis chain can be exemplified with just a basic example around food. So there we are. And if you have any questions throughout this, feel free to just write into the chat or just speak up and talk about anything, whether it be from a slide before or something we're talking about now. All right, so to start with the first step, which is identifying the evaluation question, the question with the example that we're gonna run with is, how do I know if someone is satisfied by the meal I cook for them? So do you guys have any, yeah, so what do you all think about this one? So how would you know if someone is satisfied by the meal? And this might seem like a basic question, but it's really important to be able to connect your answers with the question.
When they ask for more.
When they ask for more. Yeah, Raz said the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say when they finish it all, which is kind of close.
When they finish it all. Angela said by saying it was good. Raz also echoed the if they ask for seconds.
If they recommend it or like want someone else to eat it too, like, oh, you should try it.
And if they come back for more at a later date.
Yeah.
In some cultures, it's if they burp.
Very true.
If it was filling, sometimes when you eat a good meal, you feel very full. Sometimes when you don't.
Yeah. So those were all really good ways to measure whether or not somebody liked the meal. And so for step 1.5, we're going to decide how to measure the goal. And so what does a person say or do? Oops. What does a person say or do when they are satisfied with the meal? And so those are all of the things that you all just brainstormed with and came up with. So these would be how we are measuring our evaluation question. And we would like to list those out and be able to come back to them as concrete examples. Yeah, so I see Jane just wrote in another ask for the recipe, and giving compliments from Giselle too. So these would all be different ways to measure the question of whether or not someone is satisfied. And so this takes us to the next part of outcomes versus outputs. Liz, did you have anything to add per those last two slides?
No, that was great, Allie.
Okay, just making sure. And feel free to jump in if there's anything you think I'm skipping over.
Okay, I will.
So outcomes versus outputs, there's a very important distinction between the two. So starting with outcomes, so these would be the result of a program's activities. And so when multiple outcomes are present, they enable us to show that we have met our goals. And so these could be measured by the number of people taking a nap or the number of people who said thank you. And just to move on to outputs too, before we compare the two, outputs are evidence that activities are taking place as planned. And they enable us to tie the activities to the outcomes. So ways to measure this, given our meal evaluation question, would be the number of meals made, number of people who ate, and number of empty plates. And so to distinguish between outputs and outcomes, outputs are the direct output of the activity that is taking place. So it is the direct result of the activity. And then the outcome is what you would hope to happen as a result of the outputs. And so we quantify and measure both outcomes and outputs with indicators. So our indicators are in the teal color that we reviewed. And so just again, to clarify really quickly, that outcomes are the overall results. So it is like, what is the result of the program exactly? And then the output is the step between the two to measure, to make sure that what you want to be happening is happening.